So now that I've shown you 2 matches for cruisers, let me dive a little bit deeper on the different types of ships. Destroyers, cruisers, battleships, carriers, submarines. Now, I have all of them actually. Okay, I don't have every ship. There's at least 500 of them, give or take. But I do have one of every class. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to show you guys the different types and explain what to look forward to when you advance through the tech tree. Now, I'm only going to stick with tech tree line ships. I'm not going to do premium because, like I said before, premium ships are different, or I should say slightly different, depending on what they are. So I'm going to show you one of each, but this time I'm going to show you in what is called the training room. Now, the training room is very helpful if you want to learn what ships does what, how to hone your skills on, and you can go up against bots. And the best part is you can control the bots. You can tell them to sit still, don't shoot back, or move and don't shoot back, or move and shoot back. You can do whatever you want in the training room. But the downside about the training room is this: you do not earn anything. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to show you the benefits of each ship at tier 8. Now, tiers 7 and 8 is a bit of a sweet spot for most players because it's high enough where you can start earning a lot of credits, but it's not too high where you would have to start owing money. And if you want to do bots or say operations, you can do it at this level, 8 and 9. So, without further ado, let's start with destroyers. What? Okay, I know I just said I'm not going to use any premium ships, but in this instance, when it comes to destroyers, that's all I have. I've got premium ships. So, in this instance, I'm going to just run with my premium destroyer ships. Because, like I said, I normally run battleships, cruisers, or carriers, not destroyers. So this first one's going to be destroyer versus destroyer. On the Kozak, which is a tier 8 premium destroyer from the British line. I know I'm picking on the Prinz, but this is the only thing I got. Now, when you get your destroyer, I want you to take a look at what you have. So I've got high explosives, armor piercing, torpedoes, depth charges. Every ship has a depth charge since they're going up against destroyers. Damage control party, which essentially puts out a fire or stops the flooding. Every destroyer comes with a smoke generator. Now, certain ones have exhaust generators, which means when you move, it comes with you for X amount of time. Or a short burst one, which means it will deploy in 10 seconds and disperse in an X amount of time. Some have engine boost, which gives you a boost of speed for X amount of time. So I'm currently doing 41 knots, okay, or about 43 miles an hour, I think. I don't know. Florida, put the actual speed on there, please, in post-edit. That. So it will give me an engine boost for 120 seconds. That way I can either get to the location faster, or I get out of danger faster, or you can use it however you want. But everyone has hydroacoustic search, or hydrophone. Now I'm using the engine boost to get over to the destroyer, just so you can see what this thing does up against another destroyer. But again, this is a premium ship, so a premium has a different equipment layout, may have a different equipment layout compared to the tech tree line. It really depends, and you've got to look for that when you're in the tech tree line or the equipment section. So bear that in mind. That's why premiums are so desirable, because they can do certain things differently than its tech tree counterpart. And a lot of times when someone activates hydroacoustic or hydro, you'll be able to pick up your enemies a little bit faster. It's not as good as radar, but it's up there. There he is.
Hello there.
Shit. Okay, so the features of a destroyer are the fact that you've got guns and you have torpedoes. That's it. You don't have secondary armaments, which are secondary guns shooting at the target. And some destroyers have anti-air. It really depends on the class and the faction. So, I'm going to start off with... the target is the Jervis, which is a British destroyer. Now, when you're aiming, you see the little green circle here? That means your guns are loaded and positioned in the right spot. Now, when it's moving, you'll see it's turning... you see it's orange. That means the guns are moving or they're loading. Let me give you an example. So when you fire, now you see the circle starting to load up. Now on a battleship, it's a lot slower. Now those were HEs, high explosives. Now these are armor piercing. As you can see, the little circle is loading, and you can hear the noise. So you go to fire. Now sometimes AP is not good against targets. That's why people usually do high explosives, because it sets the target on fire. Now here's a little trick. Now I'm not going to shoot at the target. When you want to reload a lot faster, this goes for any ship except submarines and carriers. Okay? What you do is that, say if you're on armor piercing like I am now, you tap 1 and you see that white square around it. That means it's loaded, so when you pull the trigger, it fires the salvo and it reloads a lot faster. Now I'm loaded up with high explosives. A little trick you learn by figuring out, exploring, and pushing all the buttons. Now, we've got torpedoes. As you can see, my torpedo launcher is on this side, and the white marker is the target, the best optimal place to shoot. But as you can see, my torpedo angle is nowhere near the white triangle. So what we're going to do is we're going to move closer, get it lined up, and fire. Now, certain ships, cruisers and destroyers, have the ability to either do fire one at a time or fire a volley. But as you can see, it's a lot easier to do single than fire a volley. Now, as you see, the torpedoes are going, boom, and it hits our target, causing it to explode. Now, excuse me. Now, that doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen from time to time. Now, I'm going to stick with the same ship, but I'm going to show you what it's like up against a cruiser and a cruiser and a battleship. I almost said carrier. Now, I'm not going to show a submarine or a carrier because, well, it's not fair. The carrier's not shooting at you. It's basically a sitting duck. And a destroyer, you're going to have to hit it with depth charges. Now, that is going to have to be an infield experience. But I don't recommend you do that right now. The 3 classes I want you guys to experiment with is cruiser, destroyer, and battleships. Carriers and submarines are for when you're more advanced, when you know more about the game, and you feel more comfortable in doing it. So that's why I always encourage people If you feel comfortable doing those 2 classes, go for it. Now, I can do them. I've done them. I mean, shoot, I even have an aviation battleship. I mean, I think I got 4 of them. 5. I got 5 of them. So, I hope I know what I'm doing. Now, there's one more thing I want to add before we go any further. I am going to be doing it on this map a lot because this is one of my favorite maps. And to be honest, I haven't been on this map in a very long time. So each map is different. And each environment is different. So you have to adjust your play style to that map. It's like in Call of Duty, or Battlefield, or Fortnite. You have to adapt to the environment around you. Same thing here. No 2 matches are the same. Okay, there we go. Good God. Okay, so this is the light cruiser Edinburgh. She's part of the town line. The most notable Edinburgh ship or town class ship is the HMS Belfast. This is her sister. Her other sister is the HMS Sheffield. So, she's considered a light cruiser. Now, one more thing I forgot to mention. When it comes to torpedoes, remember what your range is. Now, to pull this menu up, you press and hold H, and it will tell you everything. Torpedo range, depth charges, how fast you can go, detectable range, etc. Take a look at this because this will help you if you forget. Now, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to show you what a destroyer will do against a cruiser. So, HE, high explosives. Now, just almost forgot to mention, if you don't know how to zoom in, for me it's left shift. Or you can zoom in with the scroll wheel of your mouse. Both work. But if you need to snap in and snap out real fast, left shift or right shift. So, target's not moving, it's not shooting back, like I said. And each match will be different. So, just for the demonstration purposes, here's high explosives. Notice that the damage percentage is a lot less than it was as a destroyer. So let me do it again. And that's because her armor is thicker. Now, I set her on fire. That does happen. Certain ships will catch on fire a lot faster than others. The American line has a harder time to catch on fire than, say, the British or the Japanese line. Here's armor piercing. Now, see that white thing that went in the sky? That was my round bouncing off of her deck. Certain ships have areas that are certain armor that is thicker than other parts of the ship. So, there is a higher chance that I could bounce like that. Now, there is an area. Now, I'll show you where the armor thickness of a ship is, and you guys can see that for yourself when you get to the main menu. I'll give you a demonstration on how to do that. Or Florida could put a picture here of just giving an example of the armor thickness and what calibers will work with what, essentially, but you get what I'm saying. Now, like I said in the destroyer one, I have to move because my field of vision of the torpedo is, well, not that good. As you can see, my torpedo launcher is right in the middle. Sometimes you'll have some that are near the back, like the Japanese do, or some here, like what the British do. It really depends. So pay attention to your field of vision when it comes to torpedoes, okay? So, gonna do a full spread because I showed you single spread. And there they go. Now, sometimes you see that, as you can see, the torpedoes are going along that recommended line, that white line that I told you about, that is the projected spread pattern. So keep that in mind as well. Cruisers, some battleships, and destroyers, they have that. So and as you can see, the spread pattern has gone wider than what it was on the destroyer. But it still killed the target. Bear that in mind when you're torpedoing someone, your spread pattern and your spread in your distance on the torpedoes. Each will be different at different tiers. That also goes with cruisers and battleships. Yes, there are certain kinds of battleships that have torpedoes. The most notable one is the German capital ships Scharnhorst and Gneisenau. They both have torpedoes, and I will show you. Yeah, I decided to change the map, try to make things a lot easier, because I'm getting tired of looking. Now, this is one of the maps called Ocean. You rarely see it in co-op. It's mostly in high-level randoms in ranked matches. Usually at tiers 9 and 10. You rarely see them at the lower tiers.
Let's get to it.
And I don't remember it ever being this stormy in here. Which, by the way, I forgot to mention. I'm forgetting a lot today, so please, bear with me, and I apologize. Certain maps will have weather changes that will affect your playstyle as well. Say, if you're caught in a cyclone, it will reduce your visibility by, say, a quarter to a half, depending on the cyclone and how long it goes. So you got that to deal with. And trust me, it doesn't just affect you, it affects your opponents as well. So you could use that to your advantage.
Enemy force sighted on the horizon.
Okay, so the battleship has been detected.
Engine boost deactivated.
So, this is the Battleship North Carolina, one of the most legendary American battleships. Yes, I know I said I'd be picking on the Brits, but I wanted to show you guys more than just the Brits. I mean, as much as I love picking on them, but there are times where you'll be having to go up against you'll be going up against other factions, period. I mean, and again, I would love to show you all the different types, but we don't have that kind of time. So let me show you what this destroyer can do up against a battleship. I'm gonna stop it right here because we're already at 6 kilometers. Now, most of the time, you want to stay outside the battleship's range because their secondaries, if they have what is called secondary specking, they're going to be having basically guns fired at you all the freaking time. Most of my German battleships and American battleships are set up for secondary specifications. So I can kill an enemy with nothing, just secondaries. So I'm going to show you, same deal. We're going to start with high explosive.
Nope.
Nothing. All my rounds broke. Called non-penetration.
Nope.
Now, I was able to catch it on fire. Sometimes you can catch them on fire, sometimes you can't. But as you can see, I did not even penetrate. Show it one more time. Watch the rivets on the right. I penetrated once, and 7 times I didn't even make it. But I did catch the ship on fire. And you can earn a lot of damage by doing that. Now here's armor piercing. As you can see, they all ricochet. And it's because of the ship's armor being thicker than the caliber I'm firing. And that's why you have to be careful. You can overpen or overpenetration, which is where you go into a thinner part of the ship. So probably say the top deck part of the ship, which usually has thinner armor, say like near the conning tower and all that. So I'm going to try here. As you can see, all my ammo bounced everywhere. So, when you're up against a battleship like this is where two things come into play that the destroyer will thrive at. One is
Smoke generator activated.
smoke. Now, as you can see, right where the speed is, you see a little arrow that tells you what's...
Smoke screen set.
Well, that kind of bit me in the ass. At what speed you can deploy your smoke at. The slower you go, the longer the smoke will stay with you. The faster you go, the faster it will dissipate. Now, I went out of the smoke intentionally so I could shoot the target, but when you're in battle, you need to stay in that smoke. Unless the ship has radar, which it will indicate right where it says detected, it will show a radar symbol. Means you've been detected by radar. And in that point, you're pretty much hooved. Just hope and pray to God you can survive and just give them hell. Now, watch what happens when you hit a battleship. Now, I'm doing single fire, and as you can see, it's on a straighter path this time compared to the wide angle, like it was against the cruisers. Notice how they're going 2 by 2. Because I fired them one at a time instead of a volley. So again, each destroyer does something different, and that's something you have to play with. Also, they implemented a new rule where the closer you are to a ship, the less damage the torpedoes will do, but the farther away you are, the more damage it does. Now, I just took out that ship with one volley. Again, each torpedo on a destroyer is different. So bear that in mind. Some could be more powerful, others are not. Some, like the Pan American ships, have what is called deep water torpedoes. Meaning that the torpedoes will go lower than regular torpedoes. Regular torpedoes are like a couple feet under the water. They can hit destroyers, cruisers, battleships, carriers. But deep water will go below them. So it won't hit the keel of a destroyer or a cruiser. It may hit a cruiser depending on how low the keel is, but it will destroy battleships and carriers. So again, pay attention to the torpedoes that you have and the factions you have. Now, cruisers have a little bit thicker hull, and they're a lot easier to manage. This is the middle ground for most players when first starting, and a lot of them love the cruiser line because you get the best of both worlds essentially. The best of the destroyer, but more armor than a destroyer, but lesser armor than a battleship. Yeah, shut up, Hipper. As you can see, I have the Admiral Hipper commander from Azure Lane on the Admiral Hipper, which is a tech tree line in the German cruisers. Now, she has a premium ship called the Prinz Eugen, which she does a couple of things different compared to her Admiral Hipper counterpart. Now, as you can see, the speed, we are a little bit slower because we're bigger and a little bit more heavier than a destroyer. And as you can see here, we have a top speed of 33.6 knots with torpedo range of 6 kilometers. Now, again, when you're doing any ship and you want to see what your ship can do, press and hold the letter H and it will show you this page. So now we found our destroyer, okay? It's the USS Benson. I know I said I'd be picking on the Brits, but I'm picking on the Americans right now because the little setup that I have is being a pain in my ass. Now, Admiral Hipper, like most of my German ships, have secondaries. And if you see right on the bottom where it says number 1, you're going to notice it says off with the letter P. That is your secondary switch. And I've turned mine off for right now for the demonstration purposes. You can turn yours off too if you don't want to be detected. Say if you're in a match and you're the last ship standing and you don't want to be detected and you want to sneak up and kill people, you can do that. But for people who, like me, who are secondary spectators, I would prefer not to. So, I'm going to do the same thing like I did last time. HEs first, then AP, then I'll show torpedoes. So, here's HEs. Now, she did a lot more damage, and that's because she has 203mm cannons, just like her sister Prinz Eugen. But notice that the reload time is a little bit slower than a destroyer. Most cruisers at certain tiers are a lot slower. Battleships are horrendous at the lower tiers. You could be reloading for like 40 seconds. And even some cruisers are like that too, but it usually stays around 20 to 30 seconds. Actually, how fast was that? 10 seconds? I think it was 10 seconds. Let me look. About 10 and a half seconds. Alright, so here's armor piercing. Now, I did over-penetrate because the destroyer's armor's a lot thinner, and I have thicker caliber guns. Now, here are the cruisers. As you notice, there's a wider view of angle compared to my Kozak. And this is what most destroyers and cruisers look like. This is the angle view, okay? And I think let me see how wide it is. Doesn't say. But as you can see, the angle is a lot more wider for a smaller target. And here's the wider one too. So it's your call. So we're gonna fire these torpedoes. Now, the Hipper has 2 sets of torpedoes. You got 3 in the front, 3 in the back. And her sister Prinz Eugen is the same deal. Again, each cruiser in each faction is different. Same way with the destroyers of different factions. Now, as you can see, the spread pattern on that is, well, it's not exactly great. Even sitting still, I can't hit it.
Nope.
Wow. But you see, it has an X amount of distance too. That's what I also wanted to show you. Certain torpedoes will go so far and then just fizzle out. The distance on this is 6 kilometers. So after 6 kilometers, or kilometers, sorry, kilometers, kilometers, I don't know. I use freedom fractions, okay? I don't use the other one. So I'm gonna move into position. Try that again. So after that said destination, it fizzles out. So I'm gonna do it while moving. Now the cool part is certain ships, like the Hipper class, if you just like say you fired on the left side, but you have a target and you want to fire on the right side, you can. It's ready to go. That's because Hipper has 4 different types of torpedoes. So I could do something like this. This comes in handy when you're going up against a battleship. There you go. It took 2 torpedoes to kill a destroyer. Now keep in mind, not every cruiser has torpedoes like I said in the beginning. The American line does not have torpedoes. None of them. And that was because of an actual treaty that forbade Americans from using torpedoes in cruisers during the interwar period and into World War II. There are certain ships that have torpedoes, like the Atlanta class. They've got them. Ships like the Atlanta, the San Diego, the Flint, all of them have torpedoes because they're considered anti-air cruisers. So, again, bear that in mind. If you want to play as the Americans, you'll have thicker hull, but you won't have torpedoes, so bear that in mind. Okay, so now we got the Charles Martel, the French. Now I'm definitely picking on the French. Let's just put it this way, I'm going to be picking on everyone today. Alright, so now our opponent this time is the Charles Martel, a Tier 8 cruiser from the French line. Again, another tech tree line. Now, I know I said I was going to be sticking to a lot of ships that are the same, but when you're out in the field, you're not going to run into the same ship over and over and over again. Not to mention, I felt like spicing it up. So, each cruiser is going to be different. Each destroyer, each battleship, each carrier, submarine, etc., etc. It's all going to be different. So, bear that in mind as well. But just for the sake of argument, I'm just going to show you what these ships can do. So, high explosive. Gonna stop first. High explosive. Decent amount of damage. And here's a little known fact, guys. If you look right here where I hit, I mean, let me see if I can do that again so you can see it. The damage stays. So, it stays on your ship, it stays on their ship. If you get hit, you'll see where they hit you. If you hit them, you know where you hit them. Just a little fact here. Just a little Easter egg. Now, as you can see, I ricocheted. Certain cruisers will have thicker armor that will exceed the caliber's penetration ability. See, bounced again. Now, let's try torpedoes. I'm well within range because remember, the Hipper's torpedo range is 6 kilometers, and I'm at 4.8. So, I'm going to fire 2 spreads, and we're going to watch it. Now, this is a really good spread because we are closer to the target. Common sense says closer you are to the target, the better the spread. And as you can see, looks like all but one is going to hit the target. So, boom.
I am beatish.
Target's dead. On to the battleship. Okay, this time I'm just a glutton for punishment. This is probably one of the toughest battleships out there, next to the Yamato, at least in my opinion. The KMS Bismarck, and one of my all-time favorite battleships, which I probably have the most experience with. And yes, there is a song about her, which I can hear in the background. So I'll show you what you'll have to deal with when you're going up against the Bismarck. Now, I know there are tougher ships out there, like say the completely and totally fake USS Kansas, which I definitely hate with a god freaking passion because it's so damn fake and I keep going up against the damn thing. But I digress. It sucks when I have to do it up against when I'm the Bismarck. But again, I digress. Can I hit her from here with my secondaries? What's my secondaries? Secondary battery at 8 kilometers. Okay. So right about there. There they go. Oh my god! Where the hell did you guys learn how to aim? Okay, that one might hit. So this is what your secondaries do. It fires a whole bunch of smaller caliber rounds at your target that you can set by pressing Alt and then clicking on it. Whoop, I fired. Okay. So, like what I did with the others, I'm going to turn it off, because the closer you get, the more it fires. And since mine are set to high explosive, that means that if I light someone on fire, then they put that fire out, and my secondaries light them on fire again, I could do more damage that way. Compared to, say, well, like this. So here's high explosives. Let me do that again, but closer, because I'm an idiot. Okay, so it lit the ship on fire twice. So it has 2 fires. Depending on the ship, you can have up to 4 fires on there. And believe me, having 4 fires on the ship is going to kill you real fast. So, armor-piercing rounds. And I bounced. But I did penetrate with 1 and over-penetrated, which means going through the ship 4 times. Here's torpedoes. I think this might be a little overkill. Now, since the ship is wider, it's a lot longer, all my torpedoes are going to hit. Right. Now on to the battleships. Yeah, I broke out the Battleship Bismarck. The ship we just went up against, but this is mine. And yes, that is Bismarck from Azur Lane. Battleships are a whole different beast of their own. They are a lot bigger, they're a lot slower, but they also have bigger armaments. They also have a bigger health pool compared to, say, cruisers and destroyers. They also have, well, some of them have a lot less features compared to a destroyer and a cruiser. That being, most of them don't have smoke generators. The only one I'm aware of that has a smoke generator on them is the Tier 8 Veneto class from the Italian line of battleships. I think it was Veneto Vittorio, I don't remember. It's the Tier 8 Italian battleship. I just found out she's got rolling smoke. Now, Bismarck has a premium ship called Tirpitz. The only difference between Bismarck and Tirpitz is that Tirpitz has torpedoes up to 7 kilometers, where Bismarck does not. She has anti-air. And she also has hydrophonic, or hydro, where Tirpitz does not. So keep that in mind when you're buying premium ships that have tech tree counterparts. Also, the thing I want to remind you is that if you guys buy Tirpitz, you need to get Bismarck first. Because people buy Tirpitz and they call it the Derpitz. Because when people buy her, they think, oh, I'm gonna instant win because it's Tirpitz. And then they get their asses kicked. Believe me, I was one of them. So I recommend you get Bismarck first, figure her out, then get Tirpitz. Because Tirpitz is the same thing as Bismarck. The one thing I also want to reiterate is that the German line of battleships have an icebreaker on the front. Thicker armor that you can use. If, say, someone's firing at you, they're firing at your nose, always point the nose of your battleship towards the enemy and slow your speed down. Because when they're shooting at you, they're aiming for your citadel, but they usually come up short. But if you point the nose of your ship right in front of where they're shooting, there's a high chance it's going to ricochet because of that icebreaker up front. So bear that in mind when you're playing as a German battleship. And if you're going to go down the line of battleships, I recommend you go as the Germans or Americans, because they're both heavy hitters. The Japanese are good, but they also prone to catch on fire a lot. Okay, so we found our little destroyer friend here from the Italians. Now, I'm going to give you guys a demonstration of Bismarck's secondary capabilities. Now, I've said it most in the German line, so that is something you'll have to do when you're in the commander part. I'll show you after this. So, in order to lock on to or set your secondaries to a target, left control, and you'll see the little target that says auto. And you right click on the person's name, and there they go. Now, certain ships will fire a lot faster. I've seen them on the Jean Bart, which is a tier 9 French battleship, a premium battleship. Her counterpart is the Richelieu, which is the tier 8. Both of those ships are freaking amazing. I do recommend going down the French line as well. If you're going to go as battleship, go down the French line. Those ships are awesome. Now, as you can see, I've already lit her on fire with just my secondaries alone. Now, here are my main batteries. As you can see, I do hit harder, but the problem is it's a wider spread. Compared to the destroyer and cruisers, where it's a lot more narrower, mine's it's a little bit wider because it's a battleship hitting a small target. Now, we don't have any torpedoes on this ship. There we go. Now you see, I hit harder with that one. Now, AP is the same deal, but the problem is I have a 26-second reload time. So, by the time this fires out, this ship is already going to be dead. And that's the drawback about battleships, is the slow reload. You do get amazing firepower, but the trade-off is the slower reload time. That's why a lot of battleship players rely on secondary. Oh yeah, I forgot I put that on Bismarck. I forgot to mention, this update actually brought special kill abilities. What you just saw was one of them. So, that's exciting. I also got one on the Florida, too. That one's an avalanche. Now, the one thing I do want to remind you is if you're going to play as a battleship, it's going to take you slower to get up to speed compared to, say, a cruiser or a destroyer. So bear that in mind. Especially if you play as the American line of battleships. They may be bigger, more heavily armored, and have thicker armor than certain other battleships, but you're gonna go slower than dirt. That's at least until you get to the Tier 8 North Carolina line. And believe me, you want to know why they're so damn slow? You can thank the Washington Naval Treaty for that shit. Also, another thing that you have to remember when you're playing as a battleship is that your turret will take a very long time to turn. Now, mine has gone pretty well because I had I selected an ability called Grease the Gears, which makes your turrets go faster. And you can select that in the commander section, which again, I'll show you at the end. And a little trick I like to do is that, say I'm in the middle of a battle. I got a target over, I just got done shooting someone on my right, and I gotta kill a target over here to my left. The trick I like to do is I turn the ship to make the turret go faster. And believe me guys, it does help out a lot, especially on the slower, lower tier battleships, like 4s, 5s, and 6s, especially if you're doing the American line, it does help out. So keep that in mind when you're playing as the battleship. And it's not just the American lines, even the lower Germans, the French, any lower tier ships, it will do that. So, little tips and little tricks that you learn throughout the years playing this game that can help you succeed and dominate the battlefields of warships. So, keep that in mind, guys. Okay, so now we got the Baltimore, a Tier 8 American cruiser. Now, there are two different lines in the American line of cruisers, and it diverges right at the Baltimore-Cleveland line. This is one of the other, this is, I think, one of the lower tier, not a lower tier, but it's one of the other options you can go down. So, we're going to do something a little different. I'm going to slow down to quarter speed. And I'm also going to go AP first, armor piercing, then switch to high explosive. So here's armor piercing. Now, as you can see, I over-penetrated 3 times and I ricocheted once. And I think it's because I aimed a little too high. I said it before, where you like to aim is right near the waterline. Because the Citadel is right, depending on the ship, it can either be near the back, it could be in the middle, it could be somewhere over here. It really depends on what ship it is. But when you're aiming, always aim right at the waterline. Say there. Now say, let me give you an example. I'm reloading, that ship is firing back. So I'm going to activate my secondaries and have my secondary shoot while I'm reloading. Now you see, I've already lit it on fire. Well, I thought I lit it on fire. Never mind. But there is a chance you can light a ship like this on fire with just your secondaries. And see, there they go. I just lit the ship on fire with my secondaries. You can do that in the game. You can do that in randoms or any other game mode. Now, I just caused it to get on fire again. A little trick is when you're in battle, if you have 2 fires, that's when you put your fires out. If you have 1, let it burn. Alrighty. Okay, so now we're going up against a battleship. Not just any battleship, a Japanese battleship. Like I said before, a lot of Japanese battleships have wooden decks, so you can cause them to get on fire a lot faster than, say, an American or a British line or the Germans. Now, the Germans are kind of like hit or miss, but with the Japanese, you can light them on fire real fast. Again, trial and error. All right, let's slow down to quarter speed. Now, I'm going to be firing HE first. So let's see if I can light them on fire with the first shot. First shot, one round, lit them on fire. That is one of the downfalls about being a Japanese ship, is that you have a tendency to get caught on fire a lot because of the wooden deck. I'm going to throw my secondaries on. And let's see if I can make any more fires. Now, as you can see, they're just firing in every which direction. But when you do get up close, yeah, see, there we go. I got another fire. Now, let me reload to armor piercing. Now, certain American battleships do it too, so that's the thing you gotta bear in mind. And now you see why I like to do secondary specs as a battleship, because look how long it took for me to reload. And look at all the damage I'm getting. I'm already... You can't see it in this part right here because I got my camera in my way. Or, sorry, in your way. But right here is where the score and all the ribbons are, so... I mean, I haven't even fired a shot yet. I've already got it down to half with just my secondaries alone. Now I'll fire. I got a mixed badge on that one. But again, I'm not doing anything, and the secondaries are bringing down the ship's health. That's the benefit I like about being a battleship, is that secondaries will always be there to do more damage. Especially when you have players, when you light them on fire, then you put the fire, they put the fire out. Then you can, when they put the fire out, your secondaries will light them on fire again. And you just sit here, do nothing, and you wait for the boom and a pretty. I rest my case. Now we're back at the main menu under the equipment section. Now, I'm still going to use Bismarck as a reference. As you can see, I have her set up here with all the equipment that I need, all the upgrades here, which you can upgrade with time, experience, and credits. And here's also a thing that you want to do for all ships, are these signals right here. When you get a chance, read every single one. Which one will benefit your ship, which one will give you an advantage, will help you. This one right here, for instance, is Charlie Kilo. It will increase your ship's health by 5%, squadron health by 2.5. Let's see, flood recovery time for this one, Juliet Yankee Biz 2. It will help recover your flood time by 20%. Anti-air will be good. And etc., etc. My favorite one is Hotel Yankee. Now this one is damage caused by ramming an enemy, 50%. So when you ram an enemy, whatever your health pool is at, it will add an additional 50% worth of damage. So when you hit your enemy, it'll do more and makes you hopefully survive. And every time I use it, I survive. And here it is. Damage received when ramming an enemy, negative 20%. So, you will survive. Now, if you're like under 30% and you ram an enemy with that on, there's probably a chance you're not going to make it. But if you're at like 50 or higher, yeah, sure, you got a chance. Also, look at your consumables here. Sometimes you could swap out your consumables in all tech tree and premium. You can. Premium's locked in. Like, let's go to her sister, Terrapins. Oh, I'm sorry, I take that back. Here's Terrapins. As you can see, when did they do that to Bismarck? They nerfed her. She had 406 millimeters. They gave her 380s. Oh yeah, I can't believe they nerfed her. Anyways, whatever. Always check your consumables because you can always switch them out with something else. Now, your commander is this one right here. Now, this is where you can spec out your ship however you like. These little yellow tabs here are from the community. They are what is called recommended skills. Skills that have been proven in battle that players say, yeah, this works great. This doesn't work, this works great. If you don't know what all these are, take a chance to read them all. Otherwise, there's a website you can go to that I will put in the link in the description below that will break everything down of not just this commander skills, but what signals that will go with what ship, at what tier. It will explain it all. I use it all the time. I will put it in the link in the description below. Now, I have all my Germans set up for these two right here. Long-range secondary batteries. And believe me, they do help out a lot. Now, here's the one I was telling you about. Grease the gears. Main traverse speed by 20%. That's why my turrets always turn faster. I recommend this for players who play battleships. I recommend grease the gears, and I also recommend brisk. That's how I was able to go faster. If you're on an American battleship, I recommend brisk and grease the gears because they're both slow in speed and slow in turning ability. Also, this also is beneficial. Emergency repair specialist. It helps out tremendously, as well as improve repair party. Again, when you get the chance, read all of this. Now, all these aren't the same for different ship styles. Like say, here's Exeter, the Royal Navy ship, Exeter. Notice it's different, but you still have grease the gears. You still have a survivability expert. They're different in their own way because they've got, Exeter's has got torpedo. Read each one, and my recommendation is, if you don't know what to go with, stick with the ones that are recommended by the community, because that's what we usually use the most. Yay! I said it earlier that I was going to show you Scharnhorst, one of the battleships that has torpedoes. Gneisenau does too, but I grabbed Scharnhorst. This is Scharnhorst 43. This is the one I said earlier that has some things different, and let me show you why. Scharnhorst and Scharnhorst Black don't have engine boost. Okay?
Diese starke Panzerung beschützt alle Kapitäne, die artig waren.
Yes, that is a German Santa Claus. There are differences between Scharnhorst and Scharnhorst 43. I really don't know what the difference is. I know there is a difference. I just don't know. If someone in the comments can elaborate on that for us, I'd appreciate that. But what I do know is that Scharnhorst 43 has an engine boost, which is helpful because I'm already doing 32 knots. That's with brisk. So it brings you up to 33 knots. Check this out.
Engine boost activated.
Now it brings you up to 37 knots. So keep that in mind. Certain battleships, if they have engine boost, I like to put brisk on those ships as well. Scharnhorst 43 has it. Jean Bart has got engine boost. And here's the funnier bit. When you get to the tier 9 battleship in the American line, which is the Iowa, she already does 33 knots. And if you throw brisk on her, she can do 37. Let's put it this way. I was able to outrun my friend, who was the Prinz Eugen, in a battleship. And I'm laughing along the way. Because I kept saying, how the hell is a battleship beating a cruiser in speed? Along. Okay, so I've decided to go up against another battleship, the Amagi, just to show you that the torpedo capability of certain battleships. Now, the Japanese Key has torpedoes, but that's a premium ship, just like Scharnhorst is. Gneisenau is the only one that I'm aware of, besides the second line of German battleships, that have torpedoes. So bear that in mind. America doesn't have any. Britain, I believe, the only one that I know of is the second line of the... No, I take that back. I'm sorry. The second line of British battleships with HMS Rook, they have torpedoes. The Queen Mary, that second line, they have torpedoes. So keep that in mind. So there's nothing really different between doing it with a battleship compared to, say, a cruiser with torpedoes. The only difference is you're a freaking battleship with bigger guns, thicker armor. I forgot to turn that off. That's the only real difference. Of course, I'm going to turn that on before I get done because I don't want to do a match and I get caught without my secondaries. Now, keep in mind, Scharnhorst has, what does she got? 283, so about 13-inch main batteries. A lot weaker than Gneisenau's, I'm going to say 406s. Nope. Because that's what she originally had. Now, Scharnhorst's torpedoes are right there. If I could have the floor to circle that for me, please. Thank you. That's her torpedo launcher. Tirpitz has it in the same spot. So I'm going to slow down to half speed. Now, Scharnhorst's torpedo range is 6 kilometers. We're at 4.7. Fishies in the water. Now, it fires a spread of 3. Now, as you can see, if I had an enemy on this side, I could just do that too. Lock on, fire torpedoes on that side. I could switch back to that, bring up the secondaries. And I can keep on fighting. 1, 2, 3. Now, the torpedo is not that... it's effective, but not as effective as, say, a cruiser or a destroyer's torpedo. It's good, but it's not great. Now, keep in mind, that target was sitting still. If it was moving, this would be a different story. But you get the idea.